Let's talk about creating some basic values for objects in Max. We already looked at cycle, and I gave it a basic argument of 440 to make it play at 440 Hertz. If I connect that to a gain object, and then to an easy DAC, we can make it output sound to the computer. But what if we want it to have a different value? Well, I can always change the argument that I gave it. So let's try 660. Or I can give it a value into the left inlet. If I hover my mouse over that, it tells me that it's the frequency. So let's give it a floating point number using F for float. And I'm just going to type some values in here. Pretty cool. So cycle takes a default argument, and that initializes it to have that value when it starts, but I can change it. What about other objects, like gain? Well, with gain, I don't have that option, but I can check and see what I can do with it by taking a look at the help file. Now this tells me that gain has a pretty unique set of values. 0 is silence, 157 is the max value. Good to know. If I send it a message, I can change that value. Let's give it a message box created by hitting M with the value of 0. Gain goes to 0. If I create a message with 157, this should take it to the maximum value. Note that I am not turning on the audio processing because I don't want to blow my hearing out. And let's give it one final message of 128, which will take it up to unity level. Now, what if I want my patch to automatically load a value when it starts for gain? Well, there's a couple ways I can go around doing this. I can create a new object called load bang, which will automatically send a bang, a do it now message, out as soon as the patch loads. If I connect that to the 128, as soon as the patch loads, it would bang, which I can do by double clicking, and there we go, 128 sets it to unity. Another way I can do that is if I know exactly what the message is that I want to send, I can use load mess, if I can type, and give it that message. Again, double clicking on load bang and load mess will automatically send it that value. So, same thing, as soon as the patch loads, it gives it that value. But there are other ways to do it as well. And this involves looking at the inspector for the object. So if I click on the inspector icon over here on the right, it opens up this panel. This allows me to change all sorts of cool attributes of the object. Like, what about if I change the value color? Never really liked that kind of light blue. Let's go with red. Yeah, that's cool. How about the off color? Let's make that black. And the background will be chartreuse. That looks pretty radical in kind of a 1980s way. Unfortunately, though, looking at this doesn't give me the ability to create any initial values. If I go down to value it just tells me it's set to a logarithmic increment, that it has a logarithmic scale value, mousing mode, number of steps, and ramp time. So this might not be a great object, but there are objects that will take and use initial values, primarily any of the live.objects. So let's do live.gain and use that. Live.gain is based on the Ableton Live icons. And that's appropriate because Ableton owns Cycling74, who make Macs. Within the inspector here, I have a lot more things I can do. I've got different colors, I've got all sorts of options, I've got the ability to change the font, to change the name that's displayed, all of that. But most importantly, down here under the parameter tab, I have this little box that says initial enable. Let's click on that. So initial value is currently set to 0. Let's try -54 and see what happens. So now if I select that and hit delete, because it's a live.gain object, that will make it go back to its initial value. So its initial value is -54 dB. That's really cool. I can change it, I can take it up to 6, I can take it down to -70 or 0.6, which is negative infinity. But if I hit delete, it goes back to that initial value. You'll note that this gain over here doesn't happen. I can set it to whatever, hit delete till the cows come home, no change. By and large, there are a lot of different objects that will all have the ability to set those initial values from the live.object set. There are some other ones that you should be aware of as well. Floats and integers from the number class all have a really, really important setting at the very bottom. It's called value. You have a minimum number that it will output and a maximum number that it will output. Those can be set to whatever you want, but if you have none, then it's effectively infinite in either direction, positive or negative. So if I wanted to limit everything to only positive values, I would say minimum 0, maximum none, and then try as I might, I cannot take this below 0. I can go as high as I want, and that's cool. But if I try to go to negative anything, it returns a 0. Same thing with the maximum value. I can set the maximum to keep everything within a specified range. Very, very good to know.